So yeah, I'm Tyler. We've got a steelhead streamer, I guess. Kind of one of my go-to patterns, I guess, when it comes to steelhead. Very much kind of like an intruder style, but tied on a large streamer hook style, unrated, yeah, definitely my go-to, I guess, my confidence fly. So we're gonna roll through that. We've got starting on a size 2 streamer hook, so pretty big. Now, what I like to do with the back end of that is run the thread back underneath, so that'll prop the tail up. I'll do that a couple times. That'll just secure the tail and keep this propped up. Then we're going to take this front portion and fold that in pieces. So I'll take let's say the little side chunk and move it to the side, do a wrap, take the top, move it to the top, and then take the kind of final side there and move it over. And that keeps that deer hair spread out. And we just wrap that in front of it. And you get this nice kind of ramped up tail. We're just going to trim off kind of the top portion of that so it ramps off a little better. Some guys do a lot of different butt ends, I guess. We're going to run a nice dub kind of bump and then go into a little bit of white marabou. I'm going to run a little bit of an orange bump. So we're going to do just a dubbing thread wrap. And then you're going to make sure that wraps right on top of itself on the back here. Kind of like a back and crisscross motion over top. And then you're going to secure in front of that. That'll create a nice little bump for you as well to keep the marabou separated from your tail. We're going to run a couple pieces of white marabou off the back. I just like to work with the tops of the feathers. Sometimes I'll rip off the sides down, and you can use these strands as well. But I'm going to actually do a wrap. So what I like to do is I'll remove these side pieces. So we're left with kind of just the tip of that feather. The very thin part almost, so there's no stem or middle piece left, I guess. Trim that piece off. We're just left kind of with that end. We're going to secure that down right in front of that bump with a couple good wraps all the way down to the middle of the hook and back. Then we're going to take tip of that feather. Sorry guys if I'm moving fast, just let me know. But take top of that tip of that feather. Sorry, we're going to move the thread out of the way first. And then we're going to wrap that the opposite way we kind of threaded it into place. So your hair is going to go against, and then when you're wrapping this, you're just going to spread this out. As you're wrapping around, this is going to be probably 2 or 3 wraps before we get to the top. And we're going to secure that down in front, and I just kind of pull everything back after I wrap it up there. And we're going to push that pretty much back to the bump that we started, and that's going to really flare the marabou out with the deer hair as well. So we get this nice back tail motion happening. Hopefully everybody's on board here. I'll wait a second.
So why the choice of colors, Tyler?
Really, it's just done a lot of research, I guess, or looking at shrimp and kind of squid patterns, or what they really look like in the ocean, and then trying to figure out when these are wet and layered, how do they look like when they're swimming, and is it close to, you know, those colors. And I think the color patterns around here that I use compared to what you guys use down south might be a little different. You know, and it really depends on the fish you're fishing for as well. These guys, you know, steel tend to like these. They clean up on salmon as well. I just think they're very close to what kind of, you know, shrimp come out of the ocean around here. In terms of that, they're I guess there's kind of two, but some are darker and they have these blue kind of tinges to them, or veins like I was running through. And then some we have some very bright or very bright pinky orange, I guess, ones that are almost, you know, full on with not much discoloration, and they're a little different. So that's kind of the difference, or why the color combo. When everything lays flat and together and is swimming, those blues and then the pinks and stuff come out from underneath the white, and then the head and stuff move into that shrimp. So it's really an imitation pattern, if anything.
Nice, thank you. What do you think about layering in some flash?
Yeah, there's going to be flash in here. I just put it towards the front and then it goes back to the tail. So we're going to wrap in some more dubbing flash to near the front here. We're going to put in some crystal flash. Then we're going to put in some grizzly hackle. And then we're going to wrap 2 more marabou strips in and we're done.
Wow, all right.
I was just letting everybody try to catch up on this tail. I know it was a little quick. Yeah, so I ideally would run some pink dubbing flash on a thread wrap. You could do a composite loop if you wanted to here with some, you know, pink and different color dubbing. We're gonna run it from the back of this fly basically to the front. You're gonna need to leave a little bit of room. We need to layer in, like I said, the crystal flash, grizzly, and 2 marabou wraps. So you're gonna need a little bit on that front. I got a little orange pink we're gonna put in. Yeah, so I know a lot of guys like to do, you could definitely do some sort of dubbing loop, composite loop, whatever you would like to do in this situation, but I like to keep things tight and not so bulky. So we'll bring that to the front. We are gonna grab some crystal flash. I like to change up the crystal flash sometimes. Sometimes I'll run straight blue. I'm gonna run this multicolor, it's kind of like a rainbow this time. Pink is obviously another go-to for the flash. I like crystal flash. It's thicker and it has more of a 3D kind of feel to it versus the you know, I guess tinsel flash that we typically see, or the Flashabou. For that specific fly, at least. So I've got this. It's real nice, kind of. I don't know if it'll flash, but it does all sorts of rainbow colors. I'm gonna take 2 or 3 strands of that. I like to split it in half, cut it, and then I'll take it again, pinch it, cut it in half, and you'll end up with, in this case, 6, no, I got, sorry, 8 nice strips. We're gonna kind of mount those down the side loosely, and then kind of spread them around so they're not just in one clump, where they're spread out through the fly. Put them on either side of the fly and then secure them down. So once they're kind of down, we can play with them a little bit, move them around, and put the other side on. Kind of do the same thing. Put more loose wraps. Make sure everything's spread, and then we'll do a couple nice tight wraps. Go right back to that bump. I know a lot of people like to, they trim off, say the crystal flash front. I like to pull it back. I always leave a little bit extra, and I like to pull it back into the fly, and that kind of just secures that crystal flash in there so it can't slip out ever. You end up with these little hairs and end up on this ramp anyway as well for this kind of front part. So just something I like to do. So we got some crystal flash. That should end up about the same length as going to the back of your tail. And then we're gonna grab some grizzly if you've got it. I got a nice kind of nice hackle sack here. You're welcome to put in blue here, would substitute for pink. Could also do white if you don't have much. You're gonna want this hackle about this to go back as well to about the same length as that tail ending. I typically use about 3 pieces, kind of both sides and the top. A couple nice 3 strands here. I'm gonna place those one to the side. These guys I'll trim off, but don't wrap those. The top one here, when I put this in, I like to do the same thing I did with the deer tail at the very start of this fly. So I'll mount that on the top. I'll take that strand, try to separate it by itself, and I'll just bump a couple threads underneath that on the back. And then that'll keep that bumped up off of everything else. Play with that a little bit there. And create almost like a wing, and you want to wrap right in front of that. Instead of getting secured down, and especially when it gets wet, it just gets pulled into the marabou and gets lost instead of keeping shape. So that top one, I like to do that little bump trick, mount that third side one in. Should have something that's starting to come together. All right, and we got a couple marabou wraps to go. And that's going to be that. So I like to run various colors here, of course. I'm going to run a cherry bomb marabou as the first wrap. And I'm going to run a lighter bubblegum pink with the front. You could interchange those. Sometimes I like to run a darker head, lighter body. The one you see, obviously, I ran a purple head on it. So those are things to play around with, whether it's catching fish or not. Sometimes, you know, one will do the trick and one won't. So same with these marabou pieces. I've got big long feathers, so I'll take the tip of that, cut it off, and we're going to do a wrap. So we got a feather. This is going to be, you don't want it too long. We don't want it to go all the way when we wrap it, you know, the feather strands to go back to the end of this tail. We want it to go, you know, between 1/2 and 3/4 kind of back. So you're going to need some long strands, but you can always measure up your strands if you just, I guess, put the stem at the where you're going to mount the fly down and see where the strands end at off the side. Then that'll tell you where your wrap's going to end at. Just a little side instead of guessing if this is going to work or not. I'm going to mount that in. We're going to do a couple wraps. and pull that back. So you're right at that conjunction of all your grizzly, flashabou, all that sort of stuff, and then I'll get you a nice flare out bump with that first pink section. And then we're going to take our second color and mount that in front. Find a tip that I haven't cut off yet. And this one, you want a little shorter than that last one. So you kind of get 3 layers when it's in the water, not just one, you know, chunk of color, which is nice. When you're just doing these wraps is to get those feathers kind of flared back when you're wrapping it, so strands really come freely by themselves instead of getting caught up with each other. Come on. And then you're gonna kind of secure that all down, button up the front here. Do whatever finishing kind of technique you want to do. Like to do a knot and some glue. Make sure that's nice and tight. I would even pull that back a little bit inside that bump. And there you should have something that hopefully works one day.
So is this a pattern that you made yourself, or is this like
Yeah, like it, you know, a lot of patterns are based off things. Obviously, streamers are streamers. When it comes to patterns, almost any pattern I tie, Nate, is a freestyle pattern that I've done and come up with and tried, evaluated, tried different. So this is one of those. The way I tie it has definitely evolved to those certain kind of things, so it swims differently. Same with the patterns and colors, and I find that's kind of one of the things, especially for rivers and systems, depending on the fish that are coming in that system. Some like different patterns and different stack ups of those patterns, and it, you know, might have something to do with what they grew up in, might have something to do with their ocean diet and where they were, a few other things. But I like to do these patterns. They work really well, and then you can very easily switch. You know, similar to Jamie's, you know, muddler. It's very versatile. You know, you can swap out a notorious amount of colors in here. Black and blue is another banger. There's a whole bunch, right? And in this exact same kind of build up of style, with just change outs, and you know, all of a sudden you've got they swim incredible. And when they really they get wet, it's kind of the difference on how those colors stack up. So
yeah, I tie like a similar pattern. It's more like a hobo, but it's almost built the same. But I really like how the colors transition. I've never done that, so I'll be taking it to like my go-to pattern, which is similar. It's, you know, a bit of a bump and then marabou, but I'm going to use this blue, white, and the 2 layers of pink there. That looks awesome.
Thanks, buddy. I really like the
glow
blue.
really well.
Sorry?
They glow really well in the water. If the water's off color, that really glows.
Yeah, and I've like and that's one of the things, I guess, like we fish notoriously, our river is fairly muddy. You know, it's a dirtier river. Even when it's running clear, unless it's winter time, January, it's running crystal clear, right? But it's a glacier feed, and it's a very silty glacier feed, right? So we're running blue silt all year at best condition. Most of the time though, it's a brownish. So yeah, these things glow. But that blue really undertones. It was something I'd like to do. I really like the deer hair in there too. It makes it pop out. Cat problems right now. Yeah, Jamie.
Even like the back end, like that looks cool. That looks shrimpy.
That's
Like
what I. Thanks,
how a
buddy.
fish is gonna see that with the grizzly hackle there, that looks shrimpy.
That's that whole thing.